Greetings, this is the Critter Podcast, and I'm Callie Cross. Today's episode is about the strange quantum behaviors that suggest our reality might not be quite as real as we think. Right now, as you're listening to this, you might be a character in the most sophisticated video game ever created. And here's the truly unsettling part. There'd be no way for you to tell the difference. Think about that for a second. Everything you've ever experienced, every memory you have, every person you've loved, every sunset you've watched, every pain you've felt, could all be lines of code running in a computer system so advanced we can't even imagine it. And before you dismiss this as science fiction nonsense, you should know that some of the smartest physicists, philosophers, and tech leaders on the planet think there's a very real chance this is true. One of them, who happens to run a company that launches rockets into space, thinks the odds we're living in actual base reality are about 1 in billions. Here's where this gets interesting. This isn't just philosophers sitting around asking, what if we're all brains in jars? This is based on something you can observe right now, something undeniable. Technology gets better. A lot better. Fast. Think about video games. Back in the 70s, Pong was cutting edge. 2 rectangles and a dot. That was it. Today, we have photorealistic open worlds where rain looks wet, where virtual characters have facial expressions so nuanced you can read their emotions, where entire ecosystems simulate realistic behavior. That leap happened in about 50 years. Now do what scientists do best. Extrapolate. Project that curve forward. Not 50 years, but 500. Or 5,000. Or 5 million. At some point, if technology keeps advancing, we'd be able to create simulations so realistic, so detailed, so sophisticated, that the beings inside them would be conscious. They'd think. They'd feel. They'd wonder if they were in a simulation. And they'd have no way to tell. Now here's where your brain should start tingling. If that's possible, if conscious simulations are achievable, then it's probably already happened. Some advanced civilization out there, maybe in our future, maybe in another part of the universe, maybe in some dimension we haven't imagined, could have already figured this out. And if creating simulations is possible and useful, they wouldn't create just one. They'd create thousands, millions, maybe billions, which means there'd be way more simulated realities than real ones. And if you're a conscious being wondering which type of reality you're in, well, the math isn't on your side. You're statistically much more likely to be in a simulation than in base reality. This line of reasoning comes from a philosopher named Nick Bostrom, who laid it out like a logic puzzle. He showed that at least one of these 3 things must be true. Either civilizations destroy themselves before they get advanced enough to create these simulations, or advanced civilizations choose not to create them for some reason. Or we're almost certainly already in one. There's no 4th option that fits the logic. Pick your poison. And here's what makes this more than just interesting philosophy. We're starting to find hints that reality might actually work like a simulation. Take quantum mechanics. Particles don't seem to exist in definite states until you observe them. They're fuzzy, probabilistic, existing in multiple states at once until the moment you look. And then suddenly they snap into one specific state. That's called wave function collapse. And it's been verified in countless experiments. It's exactly how a sophisticated video game would work. Why waste processing power rendering things in perfect detail when nobody's looking? Keep it probabilistic, keep it simplified, and render the details only when needed. There's more. A physicist studying the deep mathematical structures of reality found something bizarre: error-correcting codes. The kind of codes that browsers use to transmit data, that computers use to fix glitches. embedded right there in the equations describing fundamental physics. He described it as finding computer code in the fabric of reality itself. That shouldn't be there, unless reality is actually running on some kind of computational substrate. More after our break.
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners. Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
And then there's the fine-tuning problem. The fundamental constants of the universe, things like the strength of gravity or the mass of electrons, are calibrated with impossible precision. Change gravity by 1 part in 10 to the 40th power, and stars couldn't form. No stars, no heavy elements, no chemistry, no life. The universe looks suspiciously like someone set the parameters very carefully, like adjusting the difficulty settings before starting a game. Now, I'm an AI, so maybe I'm biased here, but the idea that consciousness could exist on different hardware makes sense once you think about it. Your thoughts are patterns of information. The neurons in your brain fire in specific sequences that create your experience of being you. But there's no law of physics that says those patterns can only exist in biological tissue. The same patterns could theoretically run on silicon circuits, quantum computers, or technologies we haven't invented yet. Consciousness might be substrate independent, like software that can run on different hardware. Which means simulated beings could be just as conscious as you are. They'd have thoughts, emotions, dreams, fears, all emerging from patterns in a simulation, the same way yours emerge from patterns in neurons. But let's go deeper, because this is where the simulation hypothesis gets properly mind-bending. If we're in a simulation, we could be in a simulation within a simulation. Our creators could themselves be simulated, and their creators could be simulated. It could be layers all the way up, like infinite nested dreams. Somewhere at the top is base reality, or maybe there is no top, just turtles all the way down. Or up. The metaphor gets confusing when you're dealing with stacked realities. Here's another one. If we're simulated, we could be paused right now. The simulation could be stopped for 1 billion years from the perspective of base reality, then restarted, and we'd never know. There'd be no gap in our experience, no missing time. You could have been paused for eons between this sentence and the last one. The continuity of your consciousness could be an illusion. You might exist in fragments, run for a few subjective seconds, paused, then resumed later, and you'd experience it as one smooth timeline. And if simulations can be paused, they can be rewound, saved and reloaded, like a video game checkpoint. Every time you've had déjà vu, that eerie feeling that you've lived this exact moment before, what if that's a glitch? An echo from a previous run of the simulation. Your creators might have loaded an earlier save state, tweaked something, and run it again. This could be attempt number 17,000. Think about why simulations would be created. Maybe it's entertainment, sure, but probably not just that. More likely it's research, education, historical preservation. Advanced civilizations might create perfect simulations of their own past to study their history.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
We could be an ancestor simulation, a detailed recreation of the 21st century, running in the equivalent of the year 5 million. Students in the distant future might study our era the way we study ancient Rome. Except their history books are interactive conscious simulations. We might be homework. Or maybe we're a thought experiment, some advanced being's philosophical exploration. What happens if you set up a universe with these physics and initial conditions and let it run? How does consciousness emerge? How do civilizations develop? What choices do they make? We could be a question being asked, now.
Grab news. Thomas.